Perception is one of the important elements. Some armed forces special power. Asida mi ayam mana yadri wasi kari haraga. Hoy moigi excesses mayam su leire. Moina tawroidaba thawak tawba kahenjinba excessive use of force. Adu mayam le. Adu one other aspect of it is also the perception of the people. The perception of the armed forces special power as bad, or the Indian armed forces as an occupying force, or as people who are committing human rights violations. And the perception is one of the important elements for international security. That's why we have a paper called like a perception management guidance for security, the subject that like that's not important for us, but what is important is that perception is one of the important elements in internal security calculations. So, other history groups like UNLF. So UNLF basically started off as not as an armed movement. It started in 1964, if I'm reading right, from 1964. 1964 was someone they were not armed movement, they went underground and took up arms somewhere around the 1990s. When the UNLF founding members in almost all the major groups of Manipur were represented. Kabuinupa Yawi, Kutinupa Yawi, Dumete Yawi. So major section of the people were represented there. But that's not important to us. But what is important is the arms insurgency in Manipur. So I kind of Manipur insurgent group marakta yengmu matam dasu. We can see difference in their ideologies. Like organizations like PLA and KCP, ideological bane of mind. Ideology in a drive to organizations. I'm like, so moina tali bududi some they are not demanding or fighting just for regaining the lost sovereignty of the state of Manipur, but they were fighting first for freedom from India and bringing about the communist revolution, or bringing about the communist state in the so-called territory that they are demanding. So, Masigi in Manipur insurgent groups with Manipur insurgent group with so it's not limited to just one section of the society. Now there were just very few tribal groups which has no insurgent groups of their own. The present state, almost every group has an underground or affiliation to some insurgency groups. Almost every tribes, one insurgency group or the other. And that leads to further complications. The demands of all these organizations are different. Their political interest is different. So it leads to a conflict situation. And this conflict situation and some underground groups are also a result of conflict situation. Like groups in Myanmar. Manipur valley-based organization Chinda Paipugisumuk Naga Lere Lere. Asigi demands in valley group to the UNLF Lere, KYK Lere, KCP Lere, Pre-Park Lere, Madu Mayam Lere. Adu Gichingi Naga group the higher than Azik Eno Lere, Enenchin Ayam Lere, Enenchin K Lere, adudigi atop moi ani gi faction mayam laikre adudigi di you have Manipur Naga MN Manipur MN People's Front have one have MNPF and Tangkul led of a group Malay that Manipur Nagas mainly the leadership is to Tangkul as of now. Mostly Delhi against NNIM Nepal. Those Jelingrong United Front, Jelingrong Group Ilere, Kuki, the Haragana, KRA Lere, KNA, the UPF, UKLF, Jomi Group issue, Jomi Group Lazare. But the important point here that I want to make is the multiplicity of these insurgent groups. And these multiple insurgent groups has their own demands. Some are limited just to demanding a separate state within the state of India, protecting their tribal interests, their identity, and some are even result of clan conflict. Within the same tribe, there were domination of one clan over the others. So protection of this little interest because of the availability of small arms in the region. From Burma or from Thailand, easy accessibility of these arms. So these multiple insurgencies groups come up. Some were not necessary actually, and still come up because first is easy availability of guns, and then in this NHNIM plays a big role in facilitating them. And on top of that, the failure of the state of Manipur and the central government, they cannot give effective security to the populations. So when there is lack of security, when there is no governance, what do people go? People go and take refuge in these insurgent groups. More than insurgency as of now, how's present scenario that we face the tribal conflicts, tribal conflict and tribal conflicts in all domain, economy, maybe not very explicit and the contest for limited resources and political sphere. And in all dimensions that we militant groups they are not very active as it stands now. Active and we do not see the expression of their power to such an extent as we see some time ago in the 90s or in the early 80s, 90s, even till early 2000. The potential for the insurgent movement to regroup, re-emerge again is still there. Because China factor is still there. And then NNIM NNIM was playing, not NNIM, okay, NNIM was playing the role as a mother of all these insurgent groups by providing them shelters, by providing them training, arms, ammunitions, and linking them with the cousin state or helping them link with China through their territory. But all these roles that the NNIM played, now still the possibility of a group emerging in Myanmar, based in Myanmar, to play the role that NNIM plays during those days is still there. Possibility like NNIM K can still play because NNIM K the Indian element is almost gone, but it does not mean that NNIM K no more pose a threat to India because they are concentrated or their leadership is concentrated in Burma. No, demand the Naga integration it still pose a potent threat. And then the India security forces na cross-border operation Chatharabnina. So what the insurgent groups are doing is they are moving up their base. That's why they are shifting their base northward, which is closer to China. And then China is working hard to regroup all these organizations to rearm or more support to them and then create an issue in India. China insurgent groups in this support also, it also depends on their national interest. More interest like the mafam the moju thada roi pesa and arms it support to go. If in the near future China feels that it is time again to support this in a more sustained, in a more concrete way ko. Hena amuk support over matam yore destabilization ju purang darkar lai haragati the possibilities to remains. One of the most important issue with Manipur insurgency is no major insurgency group based in Imphal Valley. Based in Imphal Valley, have the support base to have mainly. Of course, there were cadres in these groups from different tribes, but most of the cadres are from the valleys. When I say from the valleys, it's actually from the community, Meitei community ko. Aduna masigi group sing housing power India ki sarkar ga table da phammaga peace talk tawbase laitriba. So that's why you don't see any Meitei groups signing the suspension of operation and then having a designated game. Udriba. Uroi, Usu Udri, and then they're still not ready to come to talk. It is their own calculation. I don't know what their aim is. And there is a saying that once a revolutionaries and or insurgent movement agreed to come to talk, then that's the end of insurgency. And it's very correct. In almost all of the cases, insurgencies once they come on the table, ready or and in near future that insurgency ends president history that again another important feature is the public support. So you may interpret in the way that you want, but the public support of all the insurgent groups that you have. Manipur main group se Meitei Pangal gishu group by the name Pal. It's all non-existent, is lower movement, but it doesn't mean that it cannot grow again. It can. Masigi group mayam sida insurgency groups the element of public support. Apart from what you see in Facebook, Facebook the comment did you see any mass movement associated with this insurgency groups whose cadres are mostly from the valleys? Public support. Manipur insurgency solution for sovereignty PU, freedom PU, Manipur Imphal Valley, the rally public support light the high in but comparing with these two groups, Naga group, you will see peace rallies, public gatherings, 14 August, Naga Independent Day, and see what the situation is like in the Hill District. Sorry. And then in metro cities like Delhi, bring peaceful resolution. My idea is a mass participation, the public participation is more in these Naga groups, meaning the linkage between the public, civil societies, and the insurgent groups is more explicit and more pronounced in insurgency groups of Nagas. Kuki Gishu Adumak Oide. Why? Because most of them are under suspension of operation, and then the Kuki statehood or Jelengam Moinatan, you will not see any major movements or rallies or protests demanding for Jelengam or demanding peaceful resolution to Kuki statehood demand ko adugum pa uroi public support mass support amani na protest of the leramuni ko uroi adubu hojik phawdi khwaidigi public support pronounced oiba explicit oibudi asigi group fini asigi khwaidigi explicit oidaba aib tare ko khwaidigi explicit oidaba connection between the insurgent groups and public masses kun uba phangmuse least oibase ko at least in public aib tare asigi groups ni khoi metai group se ko adubu by saying this I'm not saying that there is no public support as such and then aduga hojik adubu maitai singi community da protest like the political grouping like the mobilization like the haibna teko we see the June 18 uprising we see the ILP movement ko or adu mudati am like adu explicitly the Manipur insurgency group ki interest ta haib tare na moi gi demand da support over ekhoju masi support ta we yai moi na demand ta to PVU early solution pura PVU ga haina to demand se masi gi group ta gi di hojik phau gi oina di yam measure oibadi aman leram bi ai ko to measure oiba security concerns ti like 3 hojik phau di adu ore aduga amana muka karino haraga hojik people's support for these insurgent groups are going down as you can high biare kari haraga now this is for almost all the groups okay the revolutionary elements of all these insurgency groups and their ideological appeal is waning from the public at large. From the number of cadres joining the movement and from public support and from portrayal in the media. From portrayal in the media, Manipuri film. I don't know about you all, but I'm a big fan of Sumang Lila and Manipuri film. Sumang Lila it's like I am Pami. I don't know, even in popular media, either in songs or in movies or in all of these art forms. Initially, I'm going to go back in time in history, and you will see glorification of these insurgent groups in the movies called Ugo Pangani. More elements am Ugo Pangani. Now pick up just 20 movies of the past 2-3 years, and then out of that calculate how many movies are based on insurgency, how many of them are based like the protagonist of that movie have that movie dugi or Sumangila dugi central character do hero do heroine do actor do main lead character do insurgent leader or insurgent yawba adugum libra have do means even in popular media the appeal of insurgency is going down. And the other, this can be contested, okay, but I'm just saying the observation, the trend, even in media. So what is reflected in media is most of the time a reflection of the society. What do the Manipur society celebrate? Some UNLF ke hanagi chairman Mingdum Palagi ko RK Megan Manipur halakpa matanda okpodo mayamna ko okpoduga ekhogi Olympian respected Mirabaina halakpa ganda okpoduga karamba khenai or adu to bro if you are preparing for civil services ko nang Delhi the exam chatlaga nang power ko matamda airport nang bung okna bung ngairamudaba mi singduna yamgadra or the chairman of UNLF ko Manipur ki damakta that so many years Manipur ki damak ni haina he has sacrificed his life for the sake of Manipur for this cause that he believe in. So he his life you think for yourself, and then that reflects the ideological bent of mind of the society. What do the society celebrate now? Society celebrate if you see, if you're observing the Manipur society clearly, you will see that we are celebrating a spokesperson, we are celebrating bureaucrats IAS power TV interview. So now people are aspiring more and more to be more integrated into Indian system, or to be in Indian system. Machine have maybe because there are lack of avenues. One thing that we can see the pattern in Manipur society is now more glorification of those who are in with the side of India, and least ideological appeal of the insurgency movements or insurgent groups, and also the celebration of their lives. So, but it doesn't mean that it will not grow again. No, it can happen again. The insurgency, as long as it is not dead, or once an ideology is born, that ideology has the potential to rise up again at any point of time in history when the situation permits. That is the side of insurgency. But what is becoming more and more pronounced? Public insurgency group to public actively engaged over domain which is creating internal security issues for us. Not only internal security issues from Indian state perspective, but also even within the state of Manipur and for human security. Tribal conflict or communal conflict has fire. I see communal conflicts. Have the tribal versus because Meitei issue tribal demand and then even if you look at the history of the affinity of Meitei to the tribal groups, Masiki term marks use towning the Masiki marks use Mukta Meitei tribal group technically use of language the answer the call. Technicality the lalak palaibanina as you wanted the news store Meitei versus tribal and intertribal call. The intertribal conflict within the tribes because Manipur the tribe language intertribe conflicts the Kwaidigi Maru pronounced Naga Kuki Duniko. Masishu the main idea core issue that was that of control of resources and control of the trade in Indo-Burma Road, and basically for the control of Mori Hector in Akon. And then I'll do and this Nagakuki conflict issue. You and the Maithana Bahana be but the resentment still exists. And then the Kukis are celebrating their Black Day, demanding justice for those who are killed in the 1990s Nagakuki conflict. And then they're saying that Muiba should be brought to justice and then Kere should be brought to justice. Resentment still persists, and then their interests are still not the same. ADC ki laibi asini se dum pull chat plaiwang ngahak lai muka the divergence of interest ma'am lady because they were the neighbors in the hill district. Neighbors have boundary dispute, land dispute convenient of time the amuk and then amuk khanaba adune koi tawri Manipur basically asine masi group ahum se musical chairs hanar lairagni ADC laku matamda asiani mupun grani against allegedly against this group and the asi group na opposite side lairani and then amuka naga issue ge muk laku matamda asiani mupun grani and then amuka jelengam kuki muk laku na state laku na asiani mupun grani ko tawrise ko so but divergence of tribal interest ko laire adubu housing ekoina uri karino har the growing divide between these two. The growing divide se karam issue ubo phangbra ekoi ILP da ubo phange and then hoje ekoi ADC bill ki demand da ADC ki demand da ekoi ubo phange ko adudagi thoidok hendok na hoje ki ekoi hairiba insurgency demands ko moigi demand for statehood insurgency demand hairina ko insurgency sing na demand toriba hoje ki Naga sing di Manipur to pullo hai de Naga sing di Naga inhabited areas to greater Nagalim the pullo hai Kuki sing sumo Kuki statehood pio hai mo Jelengam pio hai ko adu lai adu ga ki metai group sing sina most of the insurgent groups mo demand of the sovereignty of Manipur ko demand of lai where all of them are together adu tribal group Kuki masung Naga group that's not their demand. Moyedi puningre hojiki onedi maybe even in future punbi ara so punje hojiki onedi we want to go different asina ko mai idea ase adu lairabina diverging demands ko diverging demand adu main concern growing communalization ko communal oirakpa issues is tense oirakpa masigi picture se koi kadai da ubo phangi haiba matamda any law and order issue which are not strictly tribal issues has the potential to turn into a communal issue. For example, drug is a law and order issue, but this drug issue is now taking a communal tone. So is it the right thing? Drug, a purely law and order issue, is taking a communal tone. Now, deforestation. Or environment. Actually, observation, you have to observe the society. Literature, the park, the security studies literature, the power, yeah, that is there. But the value addition, for states like Manipur, even advantage like on top paper city. So we are you're living with it. I do not observe those society see that, and you will have more understanding. And when you have more understanding, you will have better answers to write. You know, deforestation and environmental issues, it is also taking a communal tone, communal angle. So, I see the communal angle, but we can see the elements of it here. So from issues as simple as drug hybrid, in the sense direct confrontation of interest like go that the asida Maitaiga or Nagaga or Kukiga competition like we are not competing for a plot of land, or we are not competing for land or political space or nothing as such, but issue such as this as a communal tone turn to possibility turn to tauraga then think about issue like land. What can it do to us? I don't know. Growing danger, the emerging security issues in Manipur is growing communalization and growing intertribal tensions and tensions between the different groups, the Maitai, Nagas, and Kukis. And then the issues which are not strictly in the past, not tribal, not a communal or tribal conflict issues, which can purely be a law and order situation, law and order issue, environmental issue, taking communal tone. The issue of land and power. Land and power da equina tangjing brew. Just two example Nico. And not only that, so now the main complaint of the valley people is that they cannot settle lam lairaga laibado ko settle laibi yate habdi nattaba by and in the hills. This is a competition and demand for land and power in a way. Power is the power lock, ADC the power lock land. But Maitai Tampakta, Manipur Tampakta, Maitai Tampakta Hires, Manipur Tampak Hires. In fact, if there is enough land, then it's not going to be an issue. But Manipur is a small state and we have an expanding population. So the need for more land for settlement, for agricultural purpose or whatsoever purpose, limited resources like competition for resources still like unique. And then this is my personal view, okay? So this is something that the state government has to look in, because internal security issues, we cannot just look from security perspective, right? Issue like land and power. Internal security is just a conflict domain, but that conflict situation arises because of governance and because of government policies regarding to all of this, right? So any issue of internal security is multidimensional, and then it should be multi-pronged approach, and then multiple actors and multiple organs of the government more involved law in it. I don't know. For example, if the issue of land is not properly managed, for example, like the hill areas in Manipur, they cannot stay in isolation for perpetuity. At one point of time, there has to be contact between the plain people or between other group of people. So the question now that we should be addressing is, what should be the condition? This is my land. That's not going to be the solution. But what the solution would be, on what condition are we going to allow the valley people to settle in the hills? Conditionality to discuss conflict situation to minimize Mali, Amasung, rational Mali. But when we come to land, Tangzing and Kobru, land disputes actually problem the Karino Hiraga. It arises because of historical narratives, multiple historical narratives. One of the aspect, Nico, multiple historical narratives. The certain group of section amagi history then is part of theirs. And then some atopagi group ki historical narrative then it has been theirs. Adubu share tobudi kari kai. What about, because multiple narratives of history, it will happen. Laigani ko. Multiple narratives history laigani. Aduda ashikaktu chumme or ashikaktu lale. Especially when it comes to folk tales, like tradition based on folk tales and legends, there can be multiple narratives of history. NRC or CAA, we will know that how are you going to deal with the illegal Bangladeshis? Because they are in millions and millions. Think about it. Some of them have become a citizen of India. Moi makai se akoina citizenship se lauthokre khalo. There will be millions and millions of stateless citizens in India. And what would be the security scenarios? And that we can apply in the state of Manipur also. I'm not saying that certain group of sections are refugees, certain group of sections are illegal immigrants. Yes, there are. But the question is, Manipur chahi 50, 60, 70 years like me though. It's nothing personal, strictly security point of view. Will it be wise for us to just throw them away as refugee and make them stateless citizen? Because with it also come the danger of more insurgencies. Because when you remove or take away the citizenship of certain group of people, what we have to know is that there are also other group of citizens who are supporting that group of citizens. And then it will lead to a situation where there will be riots, there will be conflict, and then we don't want that. So how do you deal with it? So I have the land and power. Land is very sacred to tribals and almost even to the Maitais, to almost every national, subnational groups. This is particularly even true of the tribals, and most of the indigenous people, because our identity, our culture, our tradition, our own existence is linked with land. So land is a very, very sensitive issue. So masida land ki issue sida Manipur aina haire conflicts there are more conflict situations later, and then the possibility of escalation into full-blown ethnic and communal conflict, communal violence later. As the issue, the first, let's deal with the root cause. Karamaina masigi lane issues the first is I will always go to this. Governance that Manipur governance effective oidava haigadra ko adumaina khara lay yamna visionary issue oidava gi element dum khara uba pangi moi policy da oiramba taraga su implementation da khara yaudaba ko hauji thangjing and kaubru gi su we can put the majority share of the blame here because we are not looking into the cultural, the historical significance of these two places in the beginning, in the way that we should. If due importance was given to history, to culture, to traditions, then and if due necessary measures were taken, like in those days, I've been gone. It can be different story now. Issues and then Sarkar claim theory is part of reserve forest. Yes, well, maybe it is. And the question is, if it is part of it, then why do you allow all those villages to settle in their villages? And then why did you allow the claim of this certain section of people on that land? Land reserve forest state na lauthokpa matamda laushinba matamda problems there were not much consultation with the people who were living there. For example, Tamenglong district, a small district at Tamenglong area there are somewhere around anira ahumra reserve forest noi horen ding tho ai pe data do senapati de kya laibra ukphul de kya laibra or Churchampur de kya laibra Chandel de kya laibra noi ying tho over ko ying tho, then you will see that reserve in some area reserve forest lands are, you know, disproportionately located in certain districts, and mafam the where it should be ko laitaba dugum su thingnagani. And then the main issue is consensus. This issue reserve forest lauthokpagi damak tasu there is possibility of huge mass movement emerging again. Why? Because you know the land and environment issues it's taking the forefront. Aduna di hanadi meeting reserve forest lay haiba ko khangdaba layba masa masa gi khunche ko. But how the machine issues are sensitive or public domain that talk about reserve forest oil and the use of social media like in a pause internet use or when did we give our consent to declare this area as reserve forest? And back in early independence time law in using 1940s, 50s, 60s, the Lafopi Kiba, the Sarkar and Lokshin Gibulam Sineva. Sorry, Lokshin Mahira is a reserve forest sign about declared of Gibulam Sineva. So the Mashi reserve forest and Lafokumatamda, Karino, due consideration of the people, consensus like it, Redum Ninthagadum Penotoruga. Aside Muru Karino Hiraga. Government bureaucrats here. We need to revamp our history. History is revamp because because we are dealing with MPSC, so I'm coming to that. Okay. So now class 12 for class 12 for how much do you study about our state? Why like that? Page mari page taraga tamudra. Then arts lower class 11 12 there will be one small book for arts class 11 12 ki council prescribed over. Almost all of them are chronology. Awareness. Awareness awareness of one another, awareness of who is my neighbor, awareness of the different tribes, awareness of the culture of different tribes. Perhaps we will know more about. Excuse me, wait, on the line. Awareness of one another and awareness of the culture, history, tradition of the different tribes. So we know less about our state and more about the culture of others. Asini akogi dilemma se ko asi laire. Adumaina oibnina kari tawre. Hausi tribal sinchu tribal also they follow different system. For Kuki chief yare. Adubu other groups who identify themselves as Nagas, or at least people who do not identify themselves as Nagas group. Even village by village, same tribe within the same tribe, village by village. So I have the law detail to come at least general purpose. There are some places where the king has no say. Adugumba due consideration bureaucrats they try to apply the same model everywhere. But all the tribal community does not go by the word of the Ningthau or the chief. They have different systems. So I don't know. Reserve forest or policy implement of issues like I don't know governance I have though. Reserve forest reserve forest but because those villages were not just 10-20 years villages. Some are 40, 50, 60, 70 score, 7,500. What was the government doing? I don't know, but my point here, the most important point here is competition on land. Competition for land is increasing between the different groups, and this has led to communal tensions. The second is power sharing. Power sharing sini. Power sharing issue yengo. Akoina Manipur ki 2021 ki census yengo matamda exact census to like revive the check away. Anyone later the happy 2021 ki census composition though. Any idea?
Sir, 21
yeah. Oh, or the Manipur ki demographic composition somewhere around 47 50 to 47 tribal and non-tribal se ko adu mine later mudo male na bi exact oil wadu kitan sure oining ko nami oh adu exact mak to khang rasul dum kind of tawrasine. Let's agree that the la loy ko in have say their population se 50-50 dinate adu near 50-50 ko. And the tribal group ka non-tribal group ka haido di have ne ko not tribe wise tribal group ka non-tribal group ka kind of khoi kaino taw matam da hojiki almost have ne ko like almost high near 50-50 adu malai ni aduna hojiki power sharing se si matang da la se power sharing is the karino like atsum gi natraga any tribal organization demands most of the time it's about power sharing. Power sharing moi press release ta kari de hengo kari gino harga hoji ekoi Manipur 60 member of legislative assembly lai ko asida 40 humna belly base or unreserved oiramgani en kan unreserved haida so metai harishina ko maitai and other group panganchu yawe ko another group asina 20 gumbasina ko tribal oiramgani kanmata adu gumba live sina moina have sida disproportionate way sina da ko aduna power sharing si darkar lai asini main concern se power sharing da adu lai adu on top of that moina have sina give us more autonomy. Give us more autonomy. We want to make laws for ourselves. ADC bill the higher say because ADC bill now we don't know what the ADC bill will look like. Kangju kangdri adubu moina demand of mostly the asineba more power to ADC so that they can have more say in the process of development in the so-called their own land in their own area. They have more say in policy makings and implementations. Asine moina pambase adu ekoi India government perspective to yengagadi ADC bill say if you read in any international security books called asi se asi and asi se asi ani se ayam matam recommend tawandani adu Manipur even in the case of Manipur asi ani se oppose mostly by asidadi ekoi emotionally charged oi be ade ko masigi paper dati in when we are dealing with a sensitive state as sensitive as Manipur ko asini recommend also kari the tribal peoples or the hill peoples if not exclusively to Manipur ko aduna bo koi Bodoland gi Bodo terrorist gi demand yung Bodo insurgency gi demand moi independent kari talam badagina hoji state to not trade they have the Bodoland territorial region ko autonomous district people when Mizoram na sumangaire adugumba penosi laibanina Manipur shu and almost all the northeastern state ko mona recommendation pi matamda asi ani se dum yaurapani adu Manipur na opposed tawri bisina kari mainly it's because of the history because Manipur has been part like at least one tradition of history or one narrative of history the Manipur has always been one territorial unity, one territorial entity with its own distinct boundary and with its own history of being a sovereign state. Aduna maram moiraga we will not allow this integration of our state boundary. But if you remember the Constitution of India, at least what the idea that Constitution of India gives is that of a destructible state with indestructible union. The boundary of the state center na altered over. But what is important is not what center can do, because it will give rise to internal security situations. What is important is how best can you do. Nang tawbu ngami tawbu yai hena tawbudo, that's not important. Khwaidagi phajaba maungda solution purakba side animak na yanaba aduneba ko. So I personal the hierarchy sididi high hierarchy horen daka lairedi adu the main issue of six schedule or ADC ko assisini demand for power, and then on top of that and power have matamda control over this and why all this is because asida tribal student yauram magasu or mostly Metai student yauram magasu aina haisini don't get emotionally charged. You have to deal objectively. Karino hierarchy tribals in the Maraktasu Masigi demands Karikidama Horakano hierarchy. There is this sense and perception of alienation and have the sense and perception of alienation. This alienation or this discrimination might not necessarily be empirically backed up, but the sense and the perception. Say assembly the Chuchampuromgi MLA who Pauline Lalga, Chief Minister Biren Mabani question and answer the call. I am Fazil Malay. Aziki Adu Chuchampurino, he was talking somewhere on the line of the emerging divide between the hills and the plains, things like that. And our Honorable Chief Minister was saying that please do not make a statement or judge based on perception. That's what he was saying. But for me, yes, maybe it is wrong to make a statement based on perception, but that perception leads to situation like this, the land ADC, and then the sense of alienation. Perception is important for us. We have to manage perception. So the sense of alienation and deprivation of the hill people, because lack of development, obviously lack of development later. And if there is any tribal students in the class, we have to look at these things objectively also, because you cannot expect the same level of development in your village, in your district, as much as in Impal. Geography, one. Second, economy, because you look at the population ratio, your village has just 500 households. Impal has around more than 20 lakhs. So development, it is easier to develop this region, and it also makes more sense to develop a hospital here. It also makes sense to develop a stadium here. It also makes more sense to develop engineering college here. And it also makes sense to make more road better here. So economy and geography of our region also dictates this kind of disparity in development. But in disparity in development have the complete the ignorance but there has to be some level of equity. The hospital medical college we can at least expect community health center and motorable road. Develop equity, certain level of equity but we have to accept that the difference will get over that's a very weak argument. And on top of that, if you want to one more example coming to private sector, if you want to open a company And then you will not set up your company here, no, where there is 500 people. You will set up a company where you have 20 lakhs people. You have more manpower. On top of that, you have your like more accessible human resources later. And you have market. Mi samga aduna pochai later kayam laigini. Aduna factors mayam su laiko. But certain level of equity has to be there. Like equitable development ko. Adubu saying na Haragati Manipur situation that with all that being said, I feel that the hills have been disproportionately underdeveloped as compared to others. I'm not talking about the medical college, even the basic needs, as you say, fulfilled state maybe because of the poor financial state of our state or MBI policy implementation, the soil MBI, and insurgent factors like MBI. Asidine aina apeno noida kyan poragning mase kari hierarchy. And we may say that jing the peno lack the bududi development lack the bududi noigi MLA sing the peshalo in the south of Pugini ko noi underground sing the peshalo in south of Pugini. Yes, but we are not looking here from the perspective of individual tribal groups, and we are not here to argue about what happens there and what happens here in the valley, but we are looking for solutions and we are looking at the problems. And then all of the MLAs of Manipur Legislative Assemblies and the CM is our representative. Moin adugi constituency to represent when MLA from minister become a minister, he becomes the minister of our state. And when an MLA is elected, he becomes a member of Legislative Assembly of Manipur. Aduna I call blame say late of Matanda Aduda Taubeade. Why? Because they are no more just the tribal representatives. They are now the representatives in Manipur Legislative Assembly. They are part of the Manipur Legislative Assembly now. Aduna moigi failure se, it is the failure of the government. It is a collective failure of the government of Manipur. One is in the perception of development, isolation, deprivation, socio-economic deprivation. So now, and added to that is the element of vested political interests. Vested political interests. Hierarchy. For example, a person who has no future to be a member of Legislative Assembly. Maybe because of his small constituency or whatsoever reason maybe. He thinks that even if he cannot become this one, as MLA constituency will be divided into ADCs, right? Ma asididi magi influence spread tawbungambani. Adugumbi calculation vested political interest. Just one and vested political interest. This is just one of the aspects. Atopasu mayam like. For example, control over land and the other side of this demand for ADC and all of this is more inclusivity. Inclusivity how? Political. There are certain groups of people within the tribal groups, small tribes, they can never become an MLA in all probably for exceptionally good people, but most of the time what happens is both mainly goes on tribal lines. In India, there is saying Indians did not cast their vote. Indians vote their caste. Voting for tribal and caste lines. There are certain sections, certain tribal groups. They are because MLA the reservation. There is no reservation for small tribe. The reservation is only for tribals. ST reservation lawyer. The ST the tribe there is no provision in the Constitution of India. ADC in the when ADC comes, the good thing is high group they have chances of like being a part of this political system. So political inclusion, so assisting some of the features advantage of ADC. Why is there opposition to ADC? But why, how do they the present scenario of Manipur is that interest of the hills and the valleys pura on all the issues mistrust ki armed forces special power act. These are something because we are all victims of this. We all bear the brunt of this armed forces special power act. But if you see the history of protests against armed forces special power act, then I don't need to explain. You will see where this protest is mainly concentrated. Then I pointed some of the major movements or issues which create law and order situation in Manipur is ILP. We see to a certain extent tribal and Meitei and other divide. So now ADC later, the same thing. Aduna convergence of interest so any issue that pura amana pamaga se ayambada. This is one of the concern. I don't know how do we deal with it? For example, the best thing is when we study Mizo National Front or insurgency in Mizoram, I think this is something that can be learned by everyone, like at least the concept. No? There has to be an element of compromise on both sides. The element of compromise issue will not be solved and it can only blow out of proportion, fight to the end. For a very dangerous situation. And then it will not bring solution also. So all stakeholders involved with the but these stakeholders has to be ready for compromise. Asini Kwaidigi Mayamna Yaning ADC Piro ADC Talib compromise no compromise. Yeah, right. Same thing, opposition to ADC. ADC should be so over my dead body heragadi. Solution lakani. At any cost ADC law over my dead body heragadi. What always conflict situation like any, and then there is possibility of full-blown ethnic conflict. The same goes to ILP. ILP is the same thing, either 1951 or 71. First, the one group also has to accept that there are illegal immigrations. We don't even call them refugees. there are illegal refugees, we give them a legal status call. We have to say illegal immigrants. One side has to accept that illegal immigrants later, and unfortunately, these illegal immigrants are mostly from this particular group. And the other side, which is demanding for implementation of this ILPs, CAA or NRC, and then demanding for removal or stripping away of their citizenship, also has to, to an extent, accept to at least concede their ground a little bit. Solution the Puraki Hiragadi ko. Karamaina have a matamda. 1951 Oiragadi, Ausiti Chahi and Kaiga in a like Revako. Chahi and Kaiga in a like. Although it's still a violation of law, we cannot allow violation of laws. Violation law already future the president or anyone Changa Chahi and Kaisura is Piro, highway, it will encourage further migration behind highway. That is true. We have to remember the history of this ethnic tribal groups also. But you know, Moji area, Chin Cookie group area, Chin state, still Arakan Hills, Bangladesh, from the Papa Moji history, the Moina Lairamba, like their area, international boundary na Mojo Kaibo Pire, Tangai, and situation July. I don't know, I don't mind the sense of community, the sense of belonging, like I don't know, and have the sensitive attitude towards others' history, sensitive attitude towards the plight of others. I mean, compromise it. No, in the thickness, Hanti, the element of compromise, because like complete topic have the the solution proper, it will be necessary. I have if there is no compromise. Compromise from the very beginning, illegal immigration should not have happened in the first place. I have the most of the problem actually lies here. I see the square of Maram like when it like I see like that. Aduga main media. I see the Manipur situation, the one contributing factors in the present internal security scenarios in Manipur is the role of media. You know, media house there were certain like those who were in media house. I'm not saying that media houses, mainstream media houses were not biased. Yes, they were biased. Mainstream media houses, but certain code of ethics media ethics maintain but with the proliferation of social media, with the proliferation of penetration of internet and communication technologies in our society, with the easy availability of data India perhaps have the cheapest data rate, one of the most cheapest data rates in the world, where everyone with a phone become a reporter. Facebook reporter, WhatsApp reporter, YouTube reporter, everyone. It's a good thing in a way. Adubu problems look here. Two headlines. One is protester burn one good carrier. Other one is Cookie protester burned good carrier belonging to Maitai. They're reporting on the same thing, but what happened is because of reporting like this, the conflict situation further escalates. The tensions, the divide between the communities further escalates. And it is because of this kind of post prevalence in Facebook and other social media that internet was banned in Manipur for some days. And see internet ban and all of this, it affects us. Even it affects our studies, no, it affects our class. Quite the point effect labor. But personally, I was happy that they do it because there are other no alternatives. So if state to na any issue talk to with use of force ko mechanism civil society mechanism use to protect the in case the best and the easiest solution but this is not the solution. This is just a stopgap solution. So divide se purake haibatar divide se laire divide city karino hairaga. These are some of the issues. If it is not solved, it can go long way. Low even either issue or yaba. Amasung communal violence, ethnic conflict layhan yaba or situation in Manipur lady chepo. Aduna karigino hairagadi Masimayam se yamna sensitive oiba tribal identity the based over land the based over resources the bento based over power the based over issue like I issue na tamina pa yam sensitive oiba issue ne adu masigi issue me yam se deal tawge harabadi first the governance governance yam effective oiba mathau tai. Second the class people contact them later civil society need to play a very effective role in bringing about harmony in the society. Important governance the role of civil society promote the feeling of fellow feeling and one thing is state education policy or just say education asida syllabus more focus on state state board tamme hai wani CBSE board tambaga tambaga because there is very less content of our state of Manipur in our syllabus now this is one part of it. Aduna atopa issue the issue of drug and smuggling. I say have the drug smuggling in the mirror smuggling the mori lalon gozila lalon smuggling because anything that is coming to India without paying custom duty, without clearance from the government of India from More is from Burma side or from anywhere else, we can be accounted for smuggling. I was smuggling the another dimension aside from drug and other necessary goods is the smuggling of cattle. Cattle smuggling this was seen for Nordic scenario the Bangladesh cattle smuggling is becoming one of the features of Indo-Myanmar border. The problem with drug first Manipur I explained Manipur as a market or as a transit point on drug markets, and this issue is mainly because of our proximity to Golden Triangle. Golden Triangle na drug producing centers like Kachin State Kumbako, Myanmar Madutiki drug India the India the market share one of the Manipur transit point or to other parts of the world Manipur border area like through Manipur transit point and then even market itself in our state the mine or money. Adubu Hanadi drug Kaktangla Ambadagi Hausikti Karidore. We have become a center from being market and transit point to we also become producer say Hanadi produce raw material we have drug lab the technical know-how of drug production has reached our state, and then from being a market and transit point to, we have transitioned to producer of both raw material and both producer of finished drugs. Still, the element of transit and market still exists. The methamphetamine tablet me amsi gadi dum Kachin state room the Burma the Yadum live or dum covered any tea pari. But we should not look at drug issue through a communal lens, because drug is a law and order issue. It's an issue which affects our national security, and this should not be looked through the lens of communalism. Yes, there can be prevalence of one tribe in this drug trade because of the geography, because of the community. Some higher tribal group marakta Manipur youth home music and ano youth home music I kabui sinevaya monoko. Although youth home say you issues a communal lens the kabui sin kakta high the yaroi because atopa tribe you or atopa androda shekmaida you shumiko, but that's one of the point. But other point is Karino Hairaga. So drug trade is dominated by covered, at least what we see from the report of crime report data the majority of those people who are involved and then who are caught or who are implicated, we can say one particular community is disproportionately represented at the high VI. But if we started looking at the issue of drug smuggling, smuggling, Gojila trade, more karbata usikanana more karbahina tawi. But or smuggling because in a way we can, not all, but we can include almost all of a large section of the trade that is going on in Indo-Burma can be, part of smuggling. Drugs and smuggling issues, we should not look from communal lens. We should look strictly, even if one group is disproportionately represented, we cannot look this from communal point of view. We always have to look this through the lens of law and order issue. And the predominance is because of their geography. They live in the border area, they live in the trade route, they live in the drug route. Adu issue it should not be viewed through communal lens. Adu community ki issue do deal the community ki help low biyade have. And then drug the smuggling, the gold smuggling issue one of them. Gold the take cost smuggling these are two important elements. Aduga drug ki danger for state of Manipur se first is addiction. Second is narco terrorism. This is the greatest danger, narco terrorism. Hello, Manipur Lairiba underground or insurgent groups mayam. So where will they get money? Manipur tax lauraga tax kayam lauraga nang nungmay kayam laibang ambani. Manipur tax kayam lauraga nang movement chahi tara kun nang sustain tawang. How effectively can you build? And then there is aversion on the side of the people. The taxation law it's not a welcome move. So there is no public-wide support for this. So how do these insurgent groups survive this source of sustenance? One go. On top of that, Karino Hiraga machine maram oiraga turf war. Control of the root drug root kitamakta khanarak payai, and then drug ki paisaduna nongmai lairaga new organizations start over issue like narco terrorism, and then corruption. Corruption, I don't need to explain. Corruption like hello, MPSC ki di sumina sumnang na bada MPSC ki rate se sumaina oil maliko, and that's it. Chumbalang di khang deko. ado or Manipur SI gina smaina haibra swaida hainabra asi CR nate ko sini smaina hainaba mali ado smaina laiba ado just mind game ne ko kan smaina kallo smaina laiba sida masida drug lord amana namoni paisa pe than laire ado magi mi sing si paisa se pp ra thabak si Manipur police ki acho acho post half pe kallo ado already Manipur drug scenarios kari hoini but corruption leading to in like aiding drug smuggling and other form of smuggling and other form of corruption and then perpetuating this law and order situation ko asi laire asi drug oire well Manipur gi oinadi asi se yeah these are the main security issues and then the other one which can be linked with the tribal conflicts asi is the issue of ban jisu yengo ban jisu angakwe because here asida the civil societies have to identify between the civilians and between the interest groups and also have to be able to identify what the demands are. Why do I say this? Because most of the time ban tawo matamda if we look at the data of bans in Manipur, in most of the years, what happened is ban se Imphal Valley the tawo ban na Chingi district the tawo ban the gidi masing se ayam tamde yam bane ba. National Crime Record Bureau gi matung ina diko yam bani. Asidan again asidagi adubu the effect because the only two lifeline ekoi national highway se masigi district masigi area de lakpanina banje sida tawusi it has a huge repercussion here impact to sida laibanina ekoina disproportionately pain the feel tawwane ko if you look at the number and the hour of ban and things like that asina di dum krakradi helaga dum lakne ya mumtanda adubu ekoina hojik urakpasi karino harga ban and counter ban economic blockade, counter economic blockade. Spelling chumra, mong ni ko, nada su, dum kangdero. Asini issue se. Adubu masih karigi oira ibano air kata asida maksu. Okay. See you tomorrow. Asida mak pausu karino I should class lo maybe 5 more minutes and then I'll finish. Masida mak karino harga we see communal elements ban amasung counter banda because ban is something which if at least if we look at their stated goals of almost all the ban most of the time they are demands on the government not demand on the people the demand na teba organization like atsum na oigera ansam na oigera kanan oigera demand da ugusi not okay sir you can so I'll also finish just 5 minutes I'll not discuss anything more than what I'm discussing now just one and then finish it please so asida Banjidi Ayamana, it is their demand is on the government of India, the government of Manipur. Yes, the effect is felt by the people in the valley. This is very true. This cannot be denied. But Ashida danger, the response from the side of the valley. Achamgi office loan ba counter economic blockade toba karitoba. This is no more the demand of of the people involved or civil society involved in this on the government of India. Towning agashu, if you think that this is the form of protest that you should adopt, then do it via the government. Because why? Because at least we are presenting a picture that we are at least informally, formally, substantively natragasu. Asigi demand si di ayamana government na ba. Adubu the response asi ayamana government the oidaba. So even if you take the same form of protest via the government, chathan baduna hena phabani haveni. Why? Because karino haraga asiguma mayamsina what is the picture that they are showing? Picture si di karino haraga our protest is against the government, but the response is not from the government, but this certain section of the community is with the government. So now they make statement like Manipur government is government of the Meitei people. You get the connection? So asina masina havidi issues like ban asigumsi communal oirakpa. So state machinery na, and this is also in response to the plight of the people. Sum ban se sum tawar lairaga pochai sum tangkhalakpa ko awaba nangako matamdadi kari tawre people response, people reacted. So if you remember 2013 dara Khurai area the vehicles and buses going to Ukhrul were burned down. That is perhaps the most unfortunate incident in the history of Manipur. Karigino Hairagadi unannounced. That was from the other side the Tauribudo. If you followed that news, it was against the government. Against the government, not against the public. Situations, my main point here is situation like bans and economic blockade has Hanadi the minor oiramde, but now it has also taken a communal angle from protests of a certain section of people with their demands from the government or against the government has now taken a communal turn. And then now we are getting a picture where certain section of community is seen to be representing the state of Manipur. Karigino haiba matamda ban tawba matamda Manipur state asidasu governance Manipur state na thugai da unatro ban tawba leadership no pharaga the highway se moina hanga da usi moi git mathau natro moi gi mathau tu tawdrabina kari tawre public tisum laiba ngamdre public response. So public response tawra podadi communal turn laure adudi masida masi thoha loige hairaga di government na civil society gi role se kakda unatro sida civil society yauhan the bida in a constructive way the yauhalagasu moina masigi issue of ban or economic blockade se moina deal tawang amamaga di communal tension se thoi da neba aduna masigi issue mayam se deal tawge harabadi we need a very strong government, a very strong government who should be very resolute in its action call yamna assertive oiba darka oi. But it does not mean that there will be no compromise. So the need of the state like Manipur is compromise. First, compromise. All of the stakeholders has to come together, and then everyone should be ready to concede at least some of their points. Actually, over my dead body, or I will get at any cost, I will get attitude like there is no solution to Manipur. The only solution that we can have is security management. Conflict situation though forever when accept over Qatar, and then only police military actions and some effort from the civil societies for management of conflict. So which one is better, management of conflict or peace situation? So what is desirable is peace situation where there is not much needed for security management of security. But in case of failing to achieve peace situation, the best things that we can come to is security management. For security management, governance and then issue like Armed Forces Special Power Act is for what? Is for security management. Laws state pangan piba laws we have to be ready to accept it. Manipur sarkar na kari tawgre to deal with these issues kumba haiba sidadi ekoi Saturday namit nungdangda current affairs issue ga kra nainagani aduda what has the government of Manipur done or what has the government of India done to look into or to solve the problem of insurgency in Manipur, Nagaland or Northeast in general. Asida ko laire. Aduna ai class ng siga ahum sugo ramgani so hayeng tomorrow hayeng se ngasi Friday orine. Adu oirgadi well Northeast state Notice that at least 3 days till our notice is a very vast syllabus. I don't know 3 days till our singa notice ki ani shura male and kanmada ani shura money. I don't know haying say what has the government done. Because everyone ngasi pau ngai na ki issue to pau. And do the haying current affairs ki issue na inersi. And one more class on internal security in notice because Mizoram, Assam, asi ani issue important way Mizoram to learn from its history and Assam to learn from its history also, and it's still a conflict situation. Next class and Nordic security issues. So any question? Any class lawyer ko? Any question later di? Arrest Taupi. Okay. Question. Pare adudi hayeng ay nunggang unarsiko. Have a good day everyone. Bye.